lo and behold, on a Labor Day weekend Sunday night, we are blessed with one of the storied college football matchups, Notre Dame versus Miami. It is in the Orange Bowl. It's in Hard Rock Stadium. It's at Miami. Kickoff 7:30 Eastern time on Sunday. It's going to be a Sunday night game, and it's going to be hot. 82 degrees around there at kickoff. 2-mile-per-hour winds. Notre Dame's favored by under a field goal. It's Catholics versus Convicts. This game was last played in 2017. Very lopsided. Miami won, I think, by over 30 points or something like that. But since then, we've had multiple coaching changes. Mark Richt out. Manny Diaz in. Manny Diaz out. Mario Cristobal in. Brian Kelly leaves for LSU. Marcus Freeman is promoted from defensive coordinator to Notre Dame head coach. And the identities of these teams have also changed since then. I think both are in better positions now than they were in 2017 to compete at the top of the sport. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon page. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the segment. Compete for a national championship. So let's get right to it. This is a game that I am extremely excited for, and I've said that so many times in these preview segments. We are blessed in week one. It's ultimately to get us excited so that we're not super disappointed in week two when the best possible matchups are the Cy-Hawk Trophy for Iowa State and also Michigan, Oklahoma. From what I see, those are really the only major games, at least so far, but I could be wrong. It's just going off of memory, but I think those are the biggest games that week. Not nearly as big as this game, unless for whatever reason, Iowa State are much better than they were last year. Same with Michigan, Oklahoma. Notre Dame versus Miami is special for a few reasons. It's special because both of these teams have tougher schedules than they did last year. So the margin for error here, especially after both teams are returning fewer than 60% of their returning production, is pretty slim. There's a good chance that one of these teams missed the playoffs. There's actually a world where both of these teams miss the playoffs. That world's unlikely, but I think it is likely that one of these teams misses. After all, Miami's at plus odds to reach the playoffs, and while Notre Dame is favored, they're not an overwhelming favorite to reach the playoffs like, say, in Ohio State, Penn State, or Texas or Georgia are. These teams won in very different ways last year, and I would expect that they would, because it's week one, to a certain degree, play very differently this year, at least to start off. So when I tell you that Notre Dame had a larger margin of victory per game than Miami, a casual fan might think, oh my gosh, well, Notre Dame just scored a lot more, or maybe they played dramatically better defense. That they did. But they really didn't score that much more. Miami led the nation in points per play last year with 0.591 points per play. It's one of the better offenses in that metric in recent memory, like with 2023 LSU and some of the 2010 offenses and 2020 Ohio State offenses. But their defense allowed 0.408 points per play, which was in the 70s. Notre Dame, meanwhile, was fourth in points per play allowed, 0.231, and their scoring offense in points per play, 0.558, was top 10. Denbrock and Golden were one of the best coordinator duos in America last year. So how does Chris Ash replacing Golden and also C.J. Carr, a player who was injured for all of last season and a redshirt freshman, how does that dynamic change things for Notre Dame? And for Miami, how does going from Cam Ward to Carson Beck change, and Lance Guidry at defensive coordinator to Corey Heatherman? So you have quarterback changes, you have defensive coordinator changes. And I think those changes are in large part what will decide this game. Notre Dame is given a 18.3 power rating per FPI, which is 6th. Miami a 13.6, which is 17th. Notre Dame's X factors are their running backs, Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price, an offensive line that includes Billy Scruth, that includes Anthony Knapp, that is littered with amazing players, with, in my mind, all Americans. Meanwhile, you look at what they have at corner with Leonard Moore and with Christian Gray. I love what they have there. That's an X-Factor cornerback room. Not just for this game, but nationally. One of the best, if not the best, cornerback room in America. Miami, they have a great running back room with, looking at it, just thinking about it, why am I forgetting Miami's running backs? It truly is a great running back room where you have, they brought in a transfer from North Dakota State. Sorry that I'm blanking on Miami running backs. It's very embarrassing. Mark Fletcher Jr., Jordan Lyle, Charmar Brown. Those are the Miami running backs. I expect this team to run the ball a lot, just like they did last year when you had Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez. On the offensive line, you got Francis Mauigoa, James Brockermeyer. You have Samson Okunlola in that two deep, but also Inez Cooper, Markel Bell, and Ryan Rodriguez and Matthew McCoy. Deep offensive line. A big NFL deep offensive line. Really, really love that unit and what it brings. You also get, I think, a defensive line with David Blay and Ruben Bain Jr. and Armando Blount that is an X factor in its own right and one of the better defensive lines in the ACC. What are some key things to pay attention to here? Some questions that each of these teams have. I would say the storyline for Notre Dame is how prepared is CJ Carr? This is really his first in-game action ever. And since he was injured for last year, one could argue that in a sense he's really a redshirt. He's really a true freshman, physically. Redshirt freshman mentally. And in eligibility he is too. But being injured with that severe of an injury all of last year means you can't physically develop a ton. So he might be closer to who he was out of high school than what he should be if he wasn't injured right now as a redshirt freshman. That's a storyline. There's also the storyline with Miami about Carson Beck. How ready is Beck and the defense? The defense is more of a story for Miami because they have less to build off of than Notre Dame entering this year. But I would also say that Notre Dame's defense could be a question too. You got a coordinator change, much of the defensive line is changing, and parts of the secondary are changing. I mean, your best defensive player, Xavier Watts, is off to the NFL, and while the corners are good, you know, schools can have amazing corners, but if their trenches are not solid in big games, the defense just can't come up and do what it needs to do. Looking and speaking of that, with key factors, I would say is power running. That is a factor here. Which team picks up yards when it matters? Notre Dame's all about outside zone. They are all about getting outside and getting to the explosives. But we have seen with them, we saw in the playoffs, with power running, bit hit and miss there. They're not as good as some other teams at power running that also have elite rushing offenses. Miami is a better power rushing team than Notre Dame. They're not as explosive, but they are a better power rushing team. So that is a factor. Defensive changes is a factor. How far does Notre Dame's defense step back? Because it likely will. Does Miami's defense improve in week one? If so, by how much, if at all? Looking at quarterback tempo, who gets in rhythm? That's the same thing with preparation, how ready the quarterbacks are. That is a huge factor here. If Beck comes out in his 2023 self, unless CJ Carr is the best quarterback Notre Dame has had in week one, day one, game one of his career, best quarterback they've had in eons, they're not winning that game if Beck comes out in his 2023 self with the offense they have and the fact that on an average basis, Miami's defense improves and Notre Dame steps back. That's a huge question. But if Beck is his 2024 self earlier in the year with tons of turnovers, Notre Dame can win even if CJ Carr is pretty mediocre, if not bad, because then they'll win the turnover battle, they can chew the clock, and they have a great offensive coordinator in Mike Denbrock, so the more possessions they get with short fields, I'm pretty confident eventually they could exploit some things in a Miami defense that is not going to play up to the standard Heatherman wants it to in week 1. Explosive plays and also home court is another big factor. Is Hard Rock Stadium filled with Miami fans like it was in 17, or are there more Notre Dame fans to make it more of a neutral site game? Also with explosive plays, which offense generates those? For Notre Dame, they could do that through the air or on the ground. Miami could too, but I will say I like the outside athletes Notre Dame has more than Miami. This is probably more a Notre Dame offense versus Miami defense question in relationship to the explosive plays. In the terms of a roster matchup between these two, Notre Dame's passing offense versus the defense is an area where I'd actually lean Miami. Now, this is controversial because I can easily see the argument that it leans Notre Dame. Notre Dame's receivers, I think, will match up well against some of these DBs. However, it's not going to be super dominant. So I like Malachi Fields and Jaden Greathouse. I think they're going to be awesome. However, Xavier Lucas, O.J. Frederick, Charles Brantley, Jacoby Thomas, Zechariah Poyser. They are not going to beat all those guys. They'll beat some of them, but all of them? No. They're not Jeremiyah Smith. And a lot of those DBs were good last year. Frederick was the only good DB for Miami. That's why he's the only DB from last year still starting for them. And I think that Ruben Bain Jr. against Notre Dame's best offensive tackle, I think that that has a chance to be a matchup that favors Miami. Straight up. Not that Notre Dame's offensive line isn't good, but Ruben Bain Jr. is a freak. And whether it's Anthony Knapp or whether it is Emil Wagner, whoever that is, I could see Miami winning that battle. I could also see Notre Dame winning that battle. But more importantly than all of that, the fact that wide receiver versus DB and edge versus tackle can be debated, and you're dealing with a quarterback making his first ever start. I don't like that. I don't think you should either. Moving on to Notre Dame's rushing offense versus the rushing defense of Miami, I think this is pretty equal. Notre Dame should be able to get some explosives on the ground against this Miami running defense, but I don't like the power running situation here. I think that Miami's defensive line, starting D-line, will put a pretty admirable effort up here. If this is a game that comes down to solely Notre Dame's O-line versus Miami's D-line, then Notre Dame will win. They're deeper and better at O-line than Miami is at D-line. But you also got to consider the linebackers, the safeties for Miami, and the fact that they can stack the box now because Carr's a pro-style guy. They don't have the threat of Leonard pulling out the ball and taking off with it. They don't have that anymore. Carr won't do that, or at least as well as Leonard did. So I'm curious to see how that affects things. Miami's offense versus Notre Dame's defense in the passing game is also a push. I think that Notre Dame should be able to win with their corners versus Miami's receivers, but I also think Beck is probably going to be good enough in this system to make some zip-tight throws to extend the chains and be clutch. I also like Miami's tackles against Notre Dame's defensive ends and pass rushers. Miami's rushing offense, I actually like against Notre Dame's rushing defense more than I do the Notre Dame rushing offense. Maybe that's weird, maybe it's bad, but I think Miami's defensive line in week 1 is going to be substantially better than Notre Dame's. And the offensive lines are therefore close enough, and Beck is also more mobile than Carr, to where I think especially in power rushing situations, I think you're going to have Miami succeed at a greater clip than Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Miami staffs are equal, but if I had to choose one, it'd be Notre Dame, because I think Freeman is a better coach than Cristobal game management-wise. Talent's pretty equal. I'd lean Miami at special teams. These teams are pretty evenly matched, straight up. They are similar in caliber. I think they are both national title contenders, both really good dark horses. If you believe in these teams more than I do, you should pick one of them to win it all. They both have the capability of doing it. However, only one team can win this game, and I'm going to go with Miami. They will cover the -2.5 line, and they will win outright. And I think they'll lead the whole game. I think they'll establish an early lead, And I think from there on, Notre Dame's playing catch up. It won't be a blowout. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Miami 7, Notre Dame 7, Miami 14, Notre Dame 10, Miami 17, Notre Dame turnover on downs, Miami 24, Notre Dame 17. And you're just locked in the situation where Miami's either ahead by a score or it's tied. That's kind of how I see this game playing out. And then maybe Miami widens the lead later. I love the experience of Beck and what he showcased against CJ Carr, where even if you love CJ Carr, it's unrealistic to expect him to come out and be this wizard in week 1. It is. This isn't Ohio State versus Minnesota in 2021. Like, all respect. It's not. Stroud didn't even have an amazing game then. But the talent mismatch was so great that, well, Ohio State won. That's not the case here. There isn't that talent mismatch. So the experience of quarterback now matters here. Even if you think Notre Dame is better, I think this is a similar situation to so many other games we're going to see in week 1 where the better team might lose because of something like team experience or quarterback inexperience. And due to that, combined with said better team being on the road, that can cause a lot of volatile results. So I like Miami here to beat Notre Dame, to look like the better team than Notre Dame, and to start off the season strong. And immediately after a win like this, be in the playoff and national title conversation. Notre Dame, thankfully, after this, gets a bye to sort things out before they welcome Texas A&M at home in week 3. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, join the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily. Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.